In this video, we're going to look at using Wrightsoft's manual S tools for selecting a piece of equipment using a manufacturer's performance calculator. Now, the first step in this process is making sure we go to the Options menu and double check that Adjust Load for AHRI Standard Rating is turned off. This is a feature that will make an adjustment for your outdoor temperature if you're using AHRI data to select equipment. Now, the first rule of Manual S is not using AHRI information when selecting equipment, it's using the manufacturer's information, which will already be adjusted for that outdoor temperature. So I'm going to make sure this is turned off so that I'm looking at the proper numbers. Next, as you might imagine, I'm going to go to the Equipment window. And this equipment page is where I'm going to get the data necessary for selecting the proper data points on my manufacturer's performance calculator. Now, before Wrightsoft will populate those data points, it actually has to have some baseline equipment information. Now, this creates a little bit of a cart in front of the horse situation here, but it's very easy to go around this. You could populate some phony data here using just some random numbers, but I like to just use the generic equipment tool and have the program populate a generic piece of equipment. It's just a placeholder so that I can go to the Perf tab and determine what my outdoor and indoor conditions are that I'll use for designing my system. Now, it's at this point that I would go to my manufacturer's performance calculator tool. Now, I didn't want to use an actual performance calculator, as not every manufacturer has a performance calculator tool, and those of them that do, they all seem to look and work pretty differently. So for the purposes of this video, I simply invented one. I made one up. So here's my imaginary performance calculator tool for my imaginary manufacturer. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the design conditions, right? I want to make sure that the equipment that I select is adjusted for the actual conditions in which I'm going to use the system. And so I look here and I see my indoor dry bulb temperature is 76 degrees. So in my performance calculator tool, I can set my indoor dry bulb to 76 degrees rather than 80 degrees. Now, as we know, this is going to reduce the capacity of my system. Now, if I go back and look, my wet bulb is 63 degrees. So again, coming back to my performance calculator tool, I changed my wet bulb to a 63 degree indoor wet bulb, which is going to be a little drier and also reduce capacity a bit, but also increase sensible and decrease latent. And lastly, I'm going to look at my outdoor design conditions at 92 degrees there, and so I'll plug in my outdoor dry bulb at 92 degrees. Now, the CFM is my next optional step here. While there is a airflow calculation here, it's simply based on next nominal ton 400 CFM per ton data when I selected that generic piece of equipment. I am more in control of the CFM. In fact, a lot of the performance calculators out there will actually show you different capacities at different CFM. This might not be a selectable option for you. In fact, some manufacturers only use 2 of these data points and show you a chart to output the data from the other 2. Regardless, I am more in control of the CFM. I'm not going to take this as gospel. These are actual real-world conditions, whereas this is an assumption. So I'm going to try to find the system that best matches my sensible load and latent load at a particular CFM. I might start with this 900 here, see what it gets me. And so here I'm going to select, and this is where the manufacturer's tools differ greatly. You typically would select the family of equipment or model number, depending, and do the same for the indoor side of the unit, and select a nominal tonnage. And this tool that I've invented here, it goes and finds some fake model numbers for me and calculates the capacity of this system. And I can see here that the total capacity of this system is 25,000 BTUs and a sensible capacity of 9,000 and change, and a latent capacity of just under 6,000 BTUs. Now, if I go back and look, well, lucky me, the sensible load of this building is 19,200 BTUs and a little change, and about 4,000 or 5,000 latent BTUs here. And so what I found here on my first try actually should work well. Now, there is one calculation that you can do to adjust the performance capacity information that you enter into Wrightsoft. See, at this step, we're going to come down to here, and we're going to override the actual performance information, right? Because we don't need to use Wrightsoft's interpolator tool. We used our manufacturer's interpolator, and we know what the capacity of this system is. The one calculation we can do, though, is that the manual S does allow for any excess latent capacity. You're allowed to take half of that and add it back to your sensible capacity. And so what we'll do is we'll look at our latent load. Our latent load is 4,415 BTUs. Right? And if I go to my latent capacity, it's 5,764. So if I take my little calculator here, and I take 5,764 BTUs, and I subtract my 4,415, let's bring that calculator back, 4,415, 13,049 is my excess BTUs. Now, half of that, divide that by 2, is going to be added over to the sensible side. So that's 674.5. And the other half is going to stay here on the latent side. So I'm going to take this additional latent capacity. I'm going to add that back to my 4,415. Right? And there is my actual latent capacity here. So I'm going to override this field. And I'm going to take that 5,089.5 and I'll plug that right there, 5,089.5. All right, so there's my latent capacity. Now, I want to take this number here. I want to take that latent out. Again, this is the half of my excess latent capacity here. So if I come back and look at my actual sensible, 19,296, I come over here and I add my 19,296 to that excess, half of that excess latent. This is my new sensible number. Now, if I take that number there and it's override the field, it's 19,970.5, so 19,970.5. So again, the only calculation I have to do when I'm using my manufacturer's performance calculator tool is take half of any excess latent capacity. That is, half of your latent capacity that exceeds the latent load. Right? So I have a latent of 5,764 and I have a latent of 4,415. That means I need this much moisture removal, but my unit is capable of this much moisture removal. Well, half of that may end up doing actually sensible capacity duties. And so I'll take half of whatever's left over. I'll take this number, my latent capacity. I will subtract my sensible capacity, and that will be the excess. I'll take half of that, add it back to the sensible, the other half, add it back to the latent. Now from here what I'll do is I'll go back to my split AC tab, I'll go back to this, I'll go into the select equipment tool, and I'll go and find that model number, those model numbers that were selected here from my fake equipment manufacturer, so that those model numbers do show up on the RightSoft reports. Now, as I used a fake manufacturer, I'm not going to find that in my AHRI equipment data. But in order to populate the right fields on your submittals, you're going to want to find that piece of equipment in its AHRI matchups here in our equipment database. Now, I'm going to leave mine as generic, but once that's done, once that's hypothetically done, and for more information on that, you can see our equipment selection videos on how to use the AHRI database tool. If I click OK here, what I'm going to do is show you how you print the manual S report. So once that's done, all I need to do now is go to Print Preview, and then find it here under Equipment. We have the ACCA Manual S Compliance Report, which I can now preview. I'm going to do that for the entire house. And the program here will calculate what the percentage capacity of load is, 103% of sensible, 113% of latent, 105% of total capacity. The program calculates what these ranges are, and I can use this to make sure, and so can a plan reviewer or whoever you might be submitting to, use this to see that your equipment falls within the manual S ranges. That concludes our video on how to use a manufacturer's performance calculator tool in conjunction with RightSoft's manual S equipment selection tools. Thank you very much for your time, and have a good day.